Guess it's time to change the oil. So I thought the reload bench would be as good a place as any to show you what you're going to need in order to do the oil change before I actually crawl underneath the truck. So in the owner's manual that comes with the Colorado, it has vehicle care information for the gasoline engine. However, this Colorado has the 2.8 liter Duramax diesel. So there is a supplement manual if you happen to get a truck with that option. And in the back under vehicle care, it shows the two different viscosity oils that they recommend for the truck. Now for negative 20 degrees and up, it's 5W30. For below negative 20 degrees and up, it's 0W30. And they explain that the oil needs to have a Dexos2 rating on it. I'm using the oil that they use at the dealership. This is part number 19354306. And the reason I'm using this oil is the first complimentary oil change I got on the truck, paid for by General Motors, used this oil, so I'm just going to stick with it. And they changed the filter. They used 126-79114. Let's go ahead and open that up. You can see it's a cartridge style filter with an O-ring. This is kind of like changing the water separator on a diesel engine. However, I'm not going to be using the AC-Delco part this time. I'm going to go ahead and use the Wix filter equivalent, which is Whiskey Lima 10286. Let's go ahead and open that up. See, it's the same sort of thing, a cartridge. It's threaded right here. And it comes with an O-ring. So there aren't really any instructions on how to change the oil. It's pretty much just like any other vehicle. However, the oil filter is in a different place, and you'll see that later in the video. It uses 6 quarts of oil, and the drain plug uses a 15mm socket or wrench if you're able to take it off with a wrench in order to remove it. So I've turned the wheels all the way to the right, so I can crawl in and underneath to get to the drain plug. Alright, so I don't need to put the truck up on ramps or use jack stands because it sits high enough off the ground. However, if that's what you want to do, that's your discretion. I've got an oil pan in here that is more than big enough to hold 6 quarts of oil. And the drain plug is right here, pretty easy to get to. Not a lot of effort to remove it. So all you got to do is just pop the hood like this. In order to release the hood the rest of the way, what you want to do is reach in underneath at the very center of the hood. You'll feel a tab sticking up. On the right side, it's kind of rough, and on the left side, it's smooth. You want to take 1 or 2 fingers and grab it from the left side and push to your right. Push all the way over, and it will tilt at an angle, an upward angle. And you can raise the hood, and the hood has got shocks on it to keep it up. Please pardon any background noise you hear. There's a lot of traffic today, both on the street and in the air, and I've got neighbors setting off firecrackers. So you just don't know what you might hear in this video. There's a firecracker. So while I'm waiting for the oil to drain, I thought I would go ahead and change the filter. Now the filter's not located on the bottom or the side of the engine, it's located at the top on the left hand side. Here's this rounded cap with this hex fitting on top, and the cartridge goes inside of there. Now I thought since the oil's been changed once, I might be able to turn this by hand, but it's not happening. So another tool that you're going to need to do this that I didn't show earlier in the video is this 1 1/8 socket. Now you might be able to get in there with an adjustable wrench or a 1 1/8 box end or the metric equivalent if you've got something pretty close. But you want to have it as tight as possible because this is plastic, and if you round that off, you're going to be replacing this. As a matter of fact, I might get a hold of the dealership and find out what this costs and include the rough price and part number in the description section of the video. I know that on the water separator on my 5.9 liter Cummins, it uses the same socket, and it's plastic as well. If you buy it at the Dodge dealer, just that cap, well, you can't buy the cap. You have to buy the whole assembly. You actually have to go to a Cummins dealer to buy the cap, and it's not that expensive, but you may not have a Cummins dealer in your area, so you may have to order it and have it delivered, just because that plastic it doesn't hold up to a whole lot of abuse. So using the same socket I've got for my Ram, I'll just go ahead and use my 1/2 inch ratchet here and just give it a slight turn to the left, lefty loosey. Yep, just like the water separator on the 5.9. Now, if there's a lot of excessive force to turn it, somebody might have cross-threaded it or something like that. And you want to be very careful when you're putting it back in not to do the same yourself. But you can see the socket allows you to get down in there. There's not a lot of clearance between the air intake and the top of the engine here. This shroud at the top of the engine goes over the valve cover. Go ahead and take off the ratchet. If I can spin it, yeah, I can spin it by hand. Carefully. A little bit of oil dripping here and there. Got a rag handy. There's the O-ring. It's right there, the top of the threads. You simply take your thumb and your forefinger and push down and push away, and it will bow outward and you can remove the O-ring. All right, I put the cap with the drain plug on a clean rag. Let's go ahead and get the filter out. Should unthread lefty loosey. It's a little bit slippery because of all the oil. The manual recommends oil and filter change every 7,500 miles. The computer in the truck will remind you. If you've got the My Chevrolet app on your phone, you'll also get notifications to remind you. And there's the filter element. It's pretty filthy. Dripping oil everywhere. Let me get rid of this. Alright, I've cleaned all the used oil off the threads of the drain plug and just inspected it to make sure nothing's messed up. It's good to go to put back in. I keep a spare plug in my glove box just in case there's a problem if I do an oil change or if I take it somewhere to have the oil changed. Let's go ahead and move the pan out of the way. Wipe up the excess oil. Get it started. Make sure it's not cross-threading. Nice and easy. Little bit of resistance, not a big deal. A lot of resistance, you got a problem. See, it's just threading in there nice and easy the way it should. Pan over there, we can get to it. I'm going to try to use this box end wrench here to tighten it up. That should be enough, but just to be sure, I'll put the ratchet on it, just give it just a slight little, plenty, that's plenty. Not trying to crush it there. Alright, it's time to install the oil filter. So let me take it out of the box here and describe it a little bit. So it's just a paper filament here with a plastic top and plastic bottom. at the top there's a hole in the center, and there's these little teeth that almost form like a flange. And these should line right up with the protrusion on the top inside of the cap for the oil filter housing. Now before I go any further into the filter, let's go ahead and change out that O-ring that I took off for this cap here, or else it's not going to properly seal. So there's a separate Ziploc bag here with an O-ring. I'm going to go ahead and coat it with just a little bit of the engine oil. Typically what I use for an O-ring when it's not some sort of food processing application is automatic transmission fluid. But this time I'm just going to get a little bit of motor oil on there. Don't have to coat it too heavily, just rub a little bit on there. And then go ahead and run it over the threads. Just kind of roll it onto the inside of the cap. Just roll it right on there. And there's a groove that it rides in right there when the threads end. Just make sure it's seated all the way around and you're good to go. Now the cap is ready. So getting back to the filter, this paper filament here, I'm going to go ahead and slide this inside the cap and it should click into place like so. Now if I turn the cap right side up, the filter doesn't fall out. So I'm simply going to use the cap as kind of a tool or a little handle here to get the filter in. Now I've got to go around the air intake and this wire loom, so it's a little bit tight in there. But if I push past it just gently, I can drop it right in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wiggle it around or spin it a little bit until that center piece at the bottom there, it just dropped in. And that's all I wanted to do, is just move it around a little bit until it drops in. There's only a couple threads on that center piece at the bottom of the filter. They're sticking out, so it's going to thread in so far, and then the rest of the way I'm going to go ahead and thread the cap on. It should be spinning on the top of the filter at this point. Try to spin it by hand, but my hands are a little bit greasy here, so I'm not getting leverage. I'm going to go ahead and just use the socket by itself as a tool if I can. Yeah, that's about as far as I'm going to get it. Let me get the wrench. Alright, I've got the 1 1/8 socket. Yeah, it's spinning nice and easy. Just couldn't get enough leverage by hand there. So with the assistance of this wrench here. And this ratchet, it's got a flex head and a longer handle, so you can get into tighter places and so you can get more leverage on it. But if there was more effort than this to turn it, I'd know that I was starting to cross thread it and I would back it off and start again. There. I got resistance there, so that's about it. I'm just going to give it a slight turn, not even a quarter turn. Nice and tight. That's good to go. New filter's in. Let's go ahead and add the oil. So I'm going to use the remote camera here to get a close-up. You can see the top of the engine here. And it says right here, 5W30 Dexos2. We'll just put a funnel in there. I made sure the funnel was nice and clean. And I've already got the first quart open because I used a little bit of oil out of this for the O-ring on the filter. I like to use a bigger funnel, that way I don't splash. If you turn the bottle sideways, you don't get as much splash either. And then once I get enough oil out of it, simply just set the oil bottle in there and just let it drain for a while. I'll be back in a few minutes. Alright, it's been a few minutes. The oil's drained out of there. So, open up the next one. I'll repeat this till I've got 6 quarts in there. Alright, that's the last of it. Make sure the cap's all cleaned up here, and it back on. Simply pressing this. Are you sure you want to reset? Arrow over to yes. Press the check button. And oil life is reset. So with the parking brake set and the truck in park, just checking underneath real quick, see if there's any leaks. There aren't. It's really not necessary to do that, I guess, so much when the filter's up here at the top. Because if I'm going to get a leak after changing oil, it's usually going to be from the filter because of some sort of screw up. And that's all there is to it. Oil change on a 2020 Colorado 2.8 liter Duramax. Thanks for watching.